So what I have here is he's sweet, affectionate. When I'm excited, so at the dog park is where you have issues, correct?
Yeah, that's where we've seen issues. He's had one or two issues of being reactive on leash, but it's not when he meets a dog. Normally, like when I've seen it happen on leash, he seems fine. He sniffs the dog. The other dog sniffs him. They seem like they're getting along fine. And then it's barking and biting.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly what triggers that barking, biting uh, response, whether it's just he's getting scared. At the dog park, there's been more obvious causes for what has set him off. There's been some smaller dogs who have barked at him, and he has responded by chasing them and biting them, um, basically feeling that fight or flight response from them barking at him and then not feeling threatened by their physical presence and acting accordingly. Um, he has, let's see, other times at the park a little while back, he can be protective of some resources, especially if it's a toy that is new to him that he decides he likes. Um, he will not, he'll take the toy to a different part of the dog park where no other dogs are so that he can have it for a bit. If
Mhm.
another dog approaches, he will growl at them to get away. Um, and another issue I've seen is one time a person at the dog park had some treats. They asked if they could give a treat to King. I said sure. Then King kept going back for treats, and when the owner's dog came up to get a treat, King barked at them or started getting aggressive because he now was protective of getting treats from this person, even though he wasn't their dog.
Yeah.
So, really, what I'm looking for is aggression training. Earlier in the year, we did some training with Sit Means Sit. Got one of their Tensor electronic collars, which we've been using since then. This is, I think, a training was in February, but been using it for training. Heel walking while we're outside, using it to get him to come, using it to get him to sit or to drop a toy if it's in his mouth. But when we were using that, like I talked about his aggression with the trainers at Sit might mean Sit, they recommended not using the system if you're at a dog park and other dogs are around him because they explained it as it's simulating touch, and if he's freaked out already, it could be like the basically the go signal. It could feel like another dog is putting their paw on him. So
Okay.
I've tried not to use it at all at dog parks, um, but there's been other triggers, and then if he's in fight mode, it takes me and any other person who's there to pull him off and get the other dog out of his mouth. He is a pit bull, so he bites and holds. And if the dog is small enough, he will thrash around as if the animal is a stuffed animal.
And he's done that before.
Yeah.
And how many times has this happened?
Um, it is quite a few, more than I can count. Um, Usually, if an instance occurs, I stay at the dog park, give him information, and then take a few days of him just at home, do some more training, try to find spaces around the neighborhood where I can take him and train him with no other dogs. But the places that I've found where like he can get exercise, they're not consistent in whether or not a dog is going to be there. And the last time with the dog park, it was because all of our other places were taken and he needed exercise, or else he'll be up all night running around the house. And so we went to the dog park, and 2 seconds in, he attacked a dog. So it's been like this for a couple of months. I've not kept track of every single time that he's done it. It always seems like it's a fluke, but it's uh, yeah. If he was more aggressive in the home or more aggressive with people, I think I would try to keep him away from the dog park. But so often, like, I'll spend a month with him training, and it seems like he has better control of it. He'll listen to the commands. He'll come when I call him. He'll respond as I expect him to. And we'll go to the dog park as a test and he'll have an issue. Or we'll go to a dog park and he'll be fine going to the dog park every day for like a week. And then one of the days he just snaps and attacks another dog. So it's not every time we go to a dog park, it's specific conditions are met when we're going to the dog park, even if it's one we've been to for at least like 30 times.
Okay. Um, Anything else besides the dog park?
That's where I've seen most of the issues. I think ideally, what I like, really, the aggression is the main thing, and to get him to stop biting other dogs. Um, I would like to see him be better, respond better, get less excited if people come over. If I have guests or like somebody came over and spent the weekend with me, and King was excited to have a new person in the house that he could play with and wouldn't listen to commands, did not uh, basically wouldn't let this person alone. Luckily, she likes dogs, and that was fine for her. But he, I notice a big change when it's not just me in the house. If it's just me in the house, we have a schedule, we keep to it. He responds very well. If there's a new element or like um, something novel, he just kind of forgets all of his training.
Okay, so the in-home, and then what did you learn on a sit means sit?
So sit means sit. They helped him with the Tensor collar system. So they had him for 4 day camp sessions. So one, I think, was introducing King responding to the system. Two was like trying to control, trying to get a little bit of self control,
Like
where
impulse control?
yes, where
Okay.
he would sit in front of every time we went through a door, I'd have him sit and then I'd open the door and then I would walk through the door and then he follows me as opposed to like bolting out the door as soon as it opens. They worked on getting him to stay in one place throughout the day. So they had like raised mats that he would spend when he wasn't actively with the trainer. He was on one of these raised mats, and like they trained him to stay there. If he got up, they would say place, and he would go back and sit down. We still work on place now for feeding. So getting him to stay in one place as I go and prepare the food and get it in his bowl and then put that, and I'll leave the food in the bowl and go fill the water bottle. And he has enough self control to sit in place and not run to the food, even though he's closer to it than I am now. Let's see. So, they also they sent me a video of him working with some of their dogs, some of their trained dogs, and it was a video of him walking with on heel with the trainer, At one point, they had one of their trained dogs hold the leash and walk him around, and King seemed great with that. Um, I think some of the other training session days, they took him out to a park and did the training outside. And with them, they weren't able to see the aggression. And so I had mentioned it, and like I think they tried giving a toy or giving a treat uh, to make him protective of resources, and King just didn't show the behavior.
Okay.
So with the limited time they had, they weren't able to trigger it, and they didn't want to force it to happen. And so there was just nothing that they could do. The way they explained it, if they couldn't see the behavior, they couldn't train against the behavior.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so heal, duration work, impulse control, um, and then they did heal with other dogs, and they didn't see anything with him with other dogs. You said correct?
Correct. Yeah, I
Okay.
would say the testing environment he was in, there were, I'd say, up to 5 dogs, but there was enough space there that like they each kind of had their own area.
Okay. Um, okay. So, anything else about King that I should know?
Um, no, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, he's very excited to meet every human being he comes across. He just has a little problem with some dogs. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
What else? What else? What else? And then you said in February of this year.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Let me see here.
Oh,
Uh,
as far as history, one thing you should probably know, he is a rescue. I've had him since last September. Um, he does have separation anxiety. The first year of his life before getting sent to, oh shoot, what's the place called? The Canine Rescue Center he was taken from. Anti-cruelty, that's what it's
oh, okay.
called.
Yeah.
Before being taken there, his previous owners kept him in a cage all the time, didn't clean up his mess as often as they should, didn't feed him as often as they should, and he spent the first years of life in a cage.
Okay.
Um, so I don't know if that's related. It's definitely related to the separation anxiety. I don't see a direct correlation between that history and his aggression with other dogs. But as far as what you should know and his history, I thought that was important.
Okay. Um. Well, so your goals are. So how do they teach you heal or like for like how does a walk look like with King outside? Like how does that look?
He is fairly well maintained. He so when we go for a walk, I have the Tensor remote control in one hand, loop of the leash around that hand. Then I'm holding the leash with my left, and he is down by my left leg. Um, he will, for the most part, be where I intend him to be. So do a good heel. And the way I maintain that is as we're walking, it is the tensor collar is on a fairly low setting. And as my arm is naturally swinging back, every so often I'll do a long press and say the word heel. So he gets the sense from the collar, he gets a verbal command, and just to keep reminding him we're healing right now as we're going on a walk. He can get slightly out of sync with that if we're on a walk and he needs to use the restroom. He will break the heel and go to a tree to do his business, or if we're right next to what he considers an interesting smell, he's not super good at controlling his impulse if it's something that suddenly comes.
Okay.
Mhm.
How often do you have to like remind him to heal in a walk? Is
It depends on the day. I would say most often, very infrequently. It's a few pulls on the leash when we first leave the house and first get outside, but once we get moving, he kind of goes and maintains the pace. Some days, like this past week, I've had 1 or 2 days where like he just is doing his own thing, and like for I just can't get him to respond. Uh, the one case I can think of is Saturday. It was me, him, and another person on a walk. I think having that other person there, he just lost all of his training.
Mhm.
So he was tugging on the leash, he was pulling every which way. Part of it was the walk we were taking was in a novel environment. It's streets we don't normally take. And so I think mixture of new people, new environment, just training went out the window. And he, I had to work really hard to maintain him.
Okay. And how did you overcome that?
Um, Being consistent with the training, pulling him back, returning him to heel, using the tensor collar. It has it has 3 levels of power, and then for each level, you have like 3 different levels of intensity. So he's on a fairly low level of power, and I can use the 3 levels of intensity to indicate like how urgent the command is. And so I was using the most intense one to trigger him. It's like, no, you need to pay attention to me now. And then using the lower ones to remind him with the command.
Okay. And then when you went higher, right? When you went higher,
Mhm.
was the response better?
Yes.
Okay, good. Um, and then so your goals are just to see what's going on with this dog stuff, right? The dog and dog.
Yes. Number one goal is to get him to stop biting.
Okay. And then what about like anything for obedience that you want to focus on?
Not That's not the focus. I would say getting him to respond to commands in novel environments would be ideal. Um, but yeah, just getting him comfortable with other dogs and preventing uh, aggression and attacking.
Okay.
Particularly if he does attack, to let go.
Okay.
Because what freaks other dog owners out, what freaks me out, is when he does attack, he bites and he holds and he'll run away with the other dog in his mouth.
Okay.
And yeah, so like that's where I've got to chase him down and hold him. Other owners are trying to pry open his mouth to get the other dog out, and other owners have hit him during this because
Mhm.
it's spur of the moment
Yeah.
and it's an emergency situation. And if he's hit, he has let go of the other dog, but like that can't be my first response. My initial reaction can't be hitting him. I need a different thing, or some other way to prevent this. Really, I'm interested in preventing this so that I have less to worry about when we go for a walk or when we go to a dog park.
Okay. Um, all right. So real quick for because I know how you said like you'll take breaks from the dog park.
Sure.
So let's say he gets into a fight. What's the
Yes.
first thing? So I mean, once the fight has ended, what
Mhm.
do you do then? Do you exit?
So I make him sit, depending on. I make him sit, hold his collar, and we will seclude ourselves from other dogs. Um, and I will be, let's see, in I guess I don't have a consistent like word that I use, but like bad is mentioned. It is me staring him in the eyes, telling him, "Don't do that," and depending on how responsive or like overwhelmed he is, I may be. Last time I held his muzzle closed with my hand because as I was holding the collar, he was still freaking out and trying to snap at things. So it's getting him in one place, limiting his movement. Um, and when he is calm and he has responded to me, then I will check with the other dog owner, make sure they are okay, uh, offer information to the owner
Yeah.
should they need it, uh, and then exit the dog park.
Okay.
So every instance where he has attacked another dog, it is an immediate leave the dog park. So he goes back on leash, we go back home. Depending on how overwhelmed or angry I am that day, when we come back home, he may spend some time in the cage just so I have a moment to calm down on my own when he's not around. Um, and I do very much want him to have that negative association with the park is a fun place you can be, but attacking other dogs, you have to leave the park.
Okay. And then how did you hear about us?
Web search. I looked for specifically people who specialize in aggressive dog training. With Sit Means Sit and other services I was looking at, it is more about obedience and teaching commands. And they don't, King has been through that. He responds well to that most of the time, except in novel environments and new people, which is something we can work on. It's the biting and aggression that I don't know how to train. And like, that's why I'm looking for a specialist in that regard.
Okay. So when you take breaks from the dog park,
Mhm.
you said like you'll focus on obedience, and then hopefully that's something that works, and then you take him back to the dog park to see how he is after. Is that what you said, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So
So we spend time away from that dog park. I've looked for green spaces in the city that isn't too close to traffic. I doubt he'll run in the road, but it's always a concern of mine. Um, and look for places where he can run off leash without a lot of other dogs around.
mhm.
We found a few that work, but there's no guarantee that on any particular day that when we stop by there won't be a lot of people around or there won't be dogs around. So we've moved around a lot looking for different spaces where he can do this training outside and like run around to get that energy out. And options are limited. So dog park would be ideal, but the more he's had problems, the more we've stayed away from them.
And um, so he usually only attacks small dogs.
Um, that has been a recent trend.
Okay.
He
And it's like
has
like when
attacked other dogs. Um, I let's see. So I've seen him attack dogs of many sizes. I think smaller dogs have a bigger risk in that once he has a hold of them, he can thrash them around. The last two dogs he's had issues with have been smaller.
when was that?
And the last one was last Friday, which is when
Okay.
I decided enough's enough. I need to reach out to a specialist.
And then what happened before the attack? Was the little dog like
So this one, there was a clear indication of why King was set off. When we were walking into the dog park, this little guy was saw King. Saw King was a new dog who wasn't at the dog park yet, and came to the double cages to kind of sniff him out. So we came in, and King was sniffing him. I took off his collar, or took off his leash rather, and while I was buckling it, the smaller dog started barking at King, and King just went at him. So we were in the park for all of 2 seconds, which is the earliest I've ever seen him have an issue. Other instances, will be there for 10, 15 minutes and then have an issue.
Okay, so usually it's when, or when was the last time it was like a bigger dog?
I don't know the exact date.
Do you remember the context?
Yeah, so that day was a busy day at the dog park. I think it was a little overwhelmed. Um, a lot of dogs, a lot of people. And so I feel like he was trying to find, he kept wandering around. I feel like he was trying to find a place where he could be somewhat secluded.
Oh, okay.
And while he found a place that kind of worked and he was there. And the park is big enough that dogs can run like crazy, but small enough that you can't really remain alone. This was it's Pup Town, if you're familiar with that. But a thing that I've seen dogs do there a lot, and things they were doing there this day, was they'll run in a pack just around the big circle of the fence. And so King's by the fence, trying to get a moment alone. The pack of dogs running comes by him. A dog runs into him. King chases him down, bites and holds on to his ear.
Dog run into and he held on, right?
Yeah.
So when a dog was kind of in his space barking, attack. A dog bumped him while he wanted to be alone, attack.
Yeah.
Any other like contexts that were different from these two?
Sure. Again, Pup Town one time. There's a couple of toys there that are just kind of park toys. They're just kind of left behind.
Oh, the resource guardian tax.
Yeah, resource guarding. Exactly. So treats and toys.
Any other contexts that were different from either he wanted to be alone and a dog entered his space?
Trying to think.
That's all. That's that. The
Yeah.
yeah.
That's at least a starting point. Sometimes, well, the other one is on leash. He seems well, and we haven't done this for a while because he's had issues a couple of times. Now we try to avoid dogs wherever possible. But when I was first getting him, introducing him to the neighborhood, or after the sit means sit training, we would just be walking along. We'd see owners kind of gathered with their dogs on the sidewalk, just kind of met up randomly during a walk. He would come up, seem fine, have no noticeable trigger, and then just start barking and snapping at the other dogs. So
Okay.
it was a couple of minutes of him seeing fine, all the dogs sniffing and greeting each other, and then just aggression hit.
Okay. And then how is he when you're like, if you're like on a walk
Yeah.
and another dog away from you, does he care or does he just mind his business and keep walking?
He does care. I try to maintain his attention and try to get him to focus on me. If he pulls too much away from the heel to look at or stare at this other dog, I will have him sit and try to look at me before we go on again.
Does he bark?
Not normally, no. He really, the only time he barks and whines is with the anxiety, the separation anxiety.
Oh, okay. So we have obedience and behavior. So think of obedience as math, science, English, and then behaviors: don't steal, don't cheat, don't lie for humans, right?
Sure.
When we want to fix a person's behavior, we don't teach them math because they don't connect, right?
Right.
So you can have a good student, he can be, A plus, but then he can be a bad person, like morally bad. But you can have a good person that's morally good, but then just a bad student. So when we're practicing obedience, usually it won't have any effect on behavior. Sometimes here and there for like, leash reactivity that can go away with obedience, but we're not really focusing on like the obedience aspect, but the way we teach it. So, because then you can get those owners who have like those cute Goldens that aren't aggressive, they're just goofy, but they pull. Like they don't care because they're like, my dog's not aggressive, they can pull whatever. Right. But then you can get those dogs that are really obedient, but then are aggressive, right? They'd rather have that control since they're aggressive. So it won't connect, it won't help really in those scenarios of like dog aggression, of teaching him like what sit is or place. It doesn't connect. And for the dog parks, the reason why it's becoming more frequent is because now every time he comes to the dog park, it's fight, and then once the fight happens, we leave. So that's the last thing he remembers. So when he entered, he's like, I know this place. We fought here.
Gotcha.
So then when you separate the fight, and then you take him out of the playpen or out of the dog park right away, that's the last thing he remembers. So if we get an incident here, like a scuffle, we make the dogs sit next to each other, and then we force them to like sit next to each other and just like deal with each other's presence, give them like 5-10 minutes, and then we separate them. So then the last thing they remember is like, oh, I saw that dog. We were sitting next to each other, right? That's the last thing they'll remember versus fight, separation, and then like, then they see that dog, it's going to be an immediate fight right away because that's the last thing they remember. It's going to be a little harder to do that at the dog park.
Sure.
Owners are probably not going to like want that. Like, no.
Right.
So it's going to be a little difficult. But that's the issue of dog parks. We don't know the dogs. We can't control we can't stop a dog barking from peeing,
Right.
And we also can't, because we don't know these dogs, right? We don't know if like a dog will see King and be like, I'm gonna mess with this guy, and then one day, I don't know if this happened yet, but like a dog will fight back, so then it'll be more of a mess, Then so for a little bit of the obedience stuff, we teach our obedience a lot differently. There's no reminders. It's just we say it and that's it, only once. And this is all done with like a slack leash, no leash tension. We don't talk. It's just one word and we go. And this is done in any environment. So we train at Oz Park, like the heel and everything like that.
Sure.
And it's like the busiest park, and we expect that level of focus no matter what's going on at Oz Park. So, and Sitman said also uses a different e-collar than us.
Sure. Is yours a shock collar? Or
yeah,
just a different brand?
Just a different brand. Ogtra. I don't know if you ever heard of Ogtra. So it's just that if you're I'm trying to think. So for the socialization, sounds just like a lack of socialization since he was kenneled up throughout his life. So he does probably not familiar with how to socialize with dogs. Has he ever played with a dog?
Yeah. Like we've been to, all the dog parks that he's had issues in have been dog parks that he's been to before and like had good experiences in. So like whether that's chasing a ball and throwing it or going back to the person who threw it, or like sometimes I mentioned the pack running in Pup Town. He has participated in that before and been very happy to be one of that crowd just running around.
Okay.
So it seems like he's good around calm dogs. He's also been his aggression towards other dogs, I've seen it start up and then go away again. So like he'll do the play wrestle with some dogs and then they'll like separate and kind of regard each other, and then just not have an issue anymore, or they'll find something else to do. I've also seen him start to get aggressive with the dog, but the dog barks at him or commands him in such a way that they're not scared of him, they might snip at him a little bit and he kind of backs off. So King, in that regard, I think if the other dog doesn't want to have a fight and like tells him, no, this isn't happening, I'm in command, King will back down. But with the smaller dogs, there's been less of the case there. So he's had some good experiences with dogs, and these bad experiences are rare, but they are so brutal that like they stick out in my mind as like that's his behavior.
Yeah. So a few things. I think um, that we would want to reteach commands first,
Okay.
see what that gets us, because
Sure.
we do more discipline with the heel.
Mhm.
So sometimes, and then we also use the eCow to correct behaviors, like the dog aggression. We use it.
Okay. So is that let's see. So you're building negative association with the bad behavior.
Yes. So,
Okay.
for example, we'd correct the knowing him.
Sure.
We'd correct just any sign of tension. So that one moment of like that look or like that chest out or something like that look, it's getting corrected so that we don't see anything else since he can flip like that, right?
Right.
So sometimes they'll give cues like the growling or like hackles will go up or
Sure.
lip licking.
Mhm.
Those are all corrected. We can make him coexist with dogs because he's done that before.
Sure.
Now, if we can make him play, that's up to him. So when we're socializing dogs and working on dog, we just try being realistic with the owners. Like, we
Sure.
can't make King play. We can
And
stop the reacting
mhm.
of attacking dogs, but then it's
Sure.
also like, well, what if the other dog is really bugging him? Then it's like it'll be
Right.
harder. But then there's the tool to stop it. So like
Mhm.
once you saw King like chasing that dog, you have that tool to cut that
Mhm.
chase out. Once you see, but then it's like the dog that keeps chasing him around and he doesn't want, and he'll avoid it. Eventually, dogs are animals; they want to stop it, so then they're
Right.
just going to address it themselves. Um, um, so with the dog park, it's going to be a little difficult if you're trying to have them be at the dog
Sure.
park because of these other dogs, right?
Right.
With the on leash greeting, it could be a few things. Dogs are more tense with on leash because once you take the leash off, like owners will say, yeah, my dog on the leash barks and is
Mhm.
aggressive with dogs, but once I take the leash off, they're fine. It's because the leash, they know they're attached to something. So they're thinking, all right, we're meeting these dogs. I can't run away. I guess like because they have responses, right? Fight, flight, or avoid. So flight is taken away because they're attached. And they're not going to submit because they feel uncomfortable. So then all there's left is fight. So then they're going to fight mode. So just a few things there. So I think what would happen is um, teaching King commands our way, and then um, moving on to the dog stuff. But it's just on King
Right.
when he wants to play, if he were to play. With,
Sure.
with the resource guarding, that can be covered.
Mhm.
But like Sitman said, if we
Yeah.
don't see resource guarding,
Right.
then like um,
Right.
we can't address it. But if it's like it also depends on what program you choose and
Mhm.
what you want. But if we're just focusing on like his behavior, it'd probably be just like teaching him the heal command, and then going on from there.
Sure.
With like the rest of the classes focusing on socialization, and maybe a little bit of the resource guarding, not so fighting.
Yeah, I'd say resource guarding has been the least frequent. It's
With you
it,
too, right? Or is it with other dogs?
oh, it's not with me. No, I've attempted a few things like I've read in books, one of the ways you can try to see if they respond or whatnot is you feed them and then you take the food away. Like you put the bowl of food down, they start eating, they take the food away, and he has no issue whatsoever with that. Um, it's most of when I've seen it has been it is a new toy that he, for whatever reason, wants to be his toy. Like that is he's got toys at home. He's used them. He doesn't really care about them anymore. They're fun to him, but like they're not something he needs to protect. It's always a park toy. An owner brings something for their dog, or it's something at the park he finds and decides this is mine now, and it's new, so I can't let it go.
And it's he only acts aggressive when he has something like resource guarding with other dogs. Has he ever done it
Yes.
to you? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I've not seen it.
Okay. And then um uh, um for so it's if so he's had good moments in the dog park.
Yeah.
So if he's played, he technically can play again. It's more possible. We can
Hmm.
go back to that setting.
Sure.
But then because the moment you go back to the dog park, you know,
Sure.
for his obedience, he's probably just gonna attack because he's that's the last thing he remembers now.
Hmm.
Um, why do you want him to be able to go to the dog park? Like, what are your goals for the dog park? Like,
Um, it'd be nice to be able to go to, say, a dog park or a dog beach, um, and be able to take him, be able to have him be off leash.
okay,
Because, I mean, ideally he would heal all the time. Sometimes that's not the case, and it can be tiring and stressful to take him on a long walk where I have to constantly look at if there's any dogs in our way, if there's any dogs along the path. Maybe we don't want an interaction right now, so we try to avoid them as much as possible. And I know that I want him to enjoy himself when he can and when he can do so safely. And he does get a lot of enjoyment out of running around freely, which is the most um, I guess the most common place that dogs can do that is a dog park. Not all parks allow dogs at all. Those that do don't allow dogs off leash. So it would be nice for him to be able to run around freely somewhere.
okay,
So if he plays with other dogs, that's not really a concern of mine. I just don't want him to attack other dogs.
okay. And then when you were talking about how when you go on a walk, it's stressful.
Yeah.
Uh, is it stressful because you're worried about um, like another owner having their dog walk up to King, or is it like what is stressing you out?
It's if it's a small dog, I'm worried King will see it as prey or as a toy. If it's a larger dog, I don't know if that particular dog has any behavioral issues. I know that my dog has some behavioral issues with some dogs, and I would just rather not take the chance.
Okay.
So this year, I've paid for the medical bills of a couple of dogs that King has attacked.
Mm.
I've paid for medical bills that King got hurt when he started a fight and the other dog fought back. And so like I reason I'm seeking out training is that if this keeps up, it means I can't afford to keep King.
Yeah.
Because like the hospital bills are expensive and it's not something I can keep doing every single month. So it's something I want to. So really, why I avoid dogs is I don't know if there will be an issue, but I don't want to take the chance.
Okay. Um, um, so for the dog parks,
Mhm.
well, first, is has he ever worn a muzzle before?
He hasn't. It's been something that I've considered doing, um, and especially with uh, his attacks after the initial training, which, from what you said, the training was more obedience than behavior. So maybe a change in his behavior was unrealistic, and I
Mhm.
realize that now. Um, but with attacks since then, a muzzle has become more of something I've been considering. Um, I would probably lean towards one where he's still able to drink water but not open his mouth fully, as opposed to like a cage on his mouth where he may or may not be able to drink from a bowl, depending on how big it is. Um, but yeah, it's something I have been avoiding because it does send messages to other owners that, oh, this dog is aggressive, more than, oh, this dog owner is mindful of the dog's aggression and that dog is fine to play now because it has a muzzle.
Yeah.
So pit bulls already get a bad rap, and the visual reminder of aggression and protection against it would give him a worse reputation. But given what I've seen, it's not something I'd be against. It's something I've been considering more and more.
Yeah. I start muzzle conditioning now.
Yeah,
If you're wanting to work with them for dogs, just
sure.
have that.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't care what other people think. You know, you're
Yeah.
taking that route of being safe versus another attack at the dog park. So I
Hmm.
think muzzle conditioning.
Yep.
Probably go find one today. The brand we use is called Baskerville. It's a
Baskerville. Okay.
basket, and
Yeah.
dogs can drink, and they can open their mouth and pant. So that opening that mouth and panting is
Right.
important because they need to release the stress.
Hmm.
So if it's the closed one, they
Right.
can't release stress because they're forced to close.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not realistic because the Baskerville, the basket muzzles allow the dog for their mouth to be open and they feel like they can use their mouth. So if they attack, they feel like they're doing something, so then we can correct it,
That's
so that we
fair.
can see it. But if the
That
muzzle
makes
is
sense.
restricted,
Right.
if the muzzle is restricted, they know like, okay, I can't do anything, so they won't try anything.
Uh,
It's also the texture is like rubbery. I'm not sure what it is, so it won't hurt if he does poke a
mhm.
dog or go to the dog. It won't hurt.
Gotcha.
Sorry. Um, so I'd start muzzle conditioning now.
Yeah.
If you're gonna take him to a dog park, definitely
Yeah.
muzzle him.
Understood.
Taking safety first, and then um, it's like with humans, like you'll get you'll have let's say you're in a friend group and everyone loves to party, right? And
Yeah.
then that one day you're like, no, I don't want to be around people. So
Right.
sometimes King might just not like the dog park.
Yeah.
So if we keep putting him there, he's probably going to put up more of a fit, like I don't want to be here, so he might just
Hmm.
attack on site. So if he's not liking the dog park, just being like realistic, like
Sure.
because every owner like wants the dog, they want their dog to run around and play, right?
Sure.
Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes the dog is just not the happy-go-lucky,
Hmm.
friendly, let's run and play all day, all night, whatever. So just being realistic of like what King's
Sure.
needs is, because
Hmm.
it sounds like how you view King's happiness and everything is running and with dogs, but he might see that as like hell no, like he might see it differently.
So not necessarily running with dogs. I do think running freely off leash is something that brings him joy. Whether he does it with dogs or without is he has done it and enjoyed himself in the past, but like in those grassy areas we found where he can be off leash and not other dogs around, him just being able to run and get his zoomies outdoors and like being able to run with me in a field or whatever, that's what brings him joy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll have to talk to Jesse about this.
Sure.
Since it's more behavior work, but right. I'm asking all the questions that he would need to know, and seeing what his opinion is. But right now, what I'm thinking is, just teaching him to heel again, our style of heel.
Sure.
And then the remaining classes will just be socializing him. And what else do I have here? So, wait, no room. And then so heel, muzzle training, and then dog on dog. What else? Resource garden. What else? So I explained the dog stuff, the dog park, why he keeps attacking every single time. Yeah. He just needs space, so that's why he attacks. Dog's being annoying. He's tired of it, attacks. What else? You already know what an e-collar is, you know. They had to use it. They had to use a stimulation.
Sure.
So I'm not sure. Have you ever done like the maximum power on that collar before?
Not with King. I've tried it before using it on him. I mean, I wanted to try it on myself to see what the sensation like. So I have tried the highest setting on me, and it's something that I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable doing to King. Now, a few levels higher, like right now, it goes up to 7. Most times we use a 3. A 4 is if there's a lot of distractions, a lot of dogs around, and we've gone up to 5 once or twice, and I could clearly tell it was hurting him when it was used.
And what did that look like? Is it a yelp?
Yeah, so he immediately, like where it is on his skin, he just immediately like backed away from that, and kind of was jarred for a moment because he didn't know what had just hit him there. He reacted as if I had punched him there, is what it looked like.
But he didn't yelp or anything?
He may have, it's like I said, we used it once or twice. Okay. I don't really remember him yelping at the time. He may have, and I can't recall.
Okay. So technically, if the e-collar was taught right and he had that reaction, that's telling me that he really doesn't know what e-collar is. So if he felt a higher power, he should have just been like either he should have responded accordingly, like to an obedience, or he should have just been like, oh, what do you need? Instead of like, whoa, what was that? So that's why I think the heel would be important, so that he knows what e-collar actually is. And this low level training can be unrealistic at times, because not every dog can be a low level dog. We'll get dogs, and we use Doctra, right? So we have 127 levels. There's no like different like level 1, 5 levels in that, and level 2, 5 levels. It's just all 0 to 127. So your maximum on that collar could be our 127. We just have more breaks and we can be more specific.
Sure.
It's a lot more simpler. What I've seen the sit and sit collars, and they look a little confusing to me, but ours look it looks much easier and simpler, I think, in my opinion.
Okay.
What was I going to say? Where was he going with this? So we can have a dog that is very responsive to like an 80 on the dog, Now we can have that same response to like a 20, 30, it doesn't matter. It's just whatever the dog is feeling,
Sure.
So we would teach him our style of heel and what e-collar is, and just seeing, having a clear sight of, or not a clear sight of, a clear response, and knowing what that hit means if it's high powered, instead of just having him be like confused and not know what to do, because then if he's gone through the training program, there shouldn't be any confusion,
Sure.
What else? Any questions so far?
Yeah, you guys, so what was the brand you mentioned of your e-collars?
Dogtra, D-O-G-T-R-A.
Dogtra. All right, I'll probably just look that up. And then you guys use prong collars as well in your training, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that is something he hasn't used before. So it's just something that hasn't come into our training. Initially, I was against using it because it does look painful.
Yeah.
But I've talked to other dog owners who have used it, and from what they can tell me, the way that it works is not the same as the way I thought it worked. So I'm more open to using it now.
Prong gives you the most control. So if you're struggling on the walks where he's pulling or something, prong collar can help you.
Yeah.
Now for us, we don't rely on the prong for that. The prong is there in case you turn a corner and there's a dog. You have the prong collar because you can't react to the remote fast enough in that scenario. So that's where the prong comes in. We're not teaching you to use a prong for every moment of the walk. That's e-collar. Prong is there just in case. Like, it's an emergency.
So gotcha.
Prong and e-collar together is like the ultimate combination for you. There's nothing wrong with both prong and e-collar. Prong collar is like the spiky one, mimics the dog bites. It's just pressure, and it's physical. So then he might actually understand it more because it's physical versus, using words where, because dogs thrive on physicality,
All right, and then you mentioned Jesse as more behavioral focused in his training, or at least more experience with that. So likely would he be our trainer then?
Yeah, most likely.
Okay.
I'll tell him everything here, what we're dealing with. I've done some behavior things like for humans. So, and we've done some stuff here for like our Bruin trainings if they need a socialization, we'll socialize them. I've seen it all, the dog's attack and everything. But I'm kind of gonna ask him if if you want me to do it, I'll do it. Or if he's thinking like, okay, maybe I'll handle it. Or sometimes he'll just tell me like an outline, like, do you want to see this? If you don't see this, and he'll help me out through it. But asking his opinion because he's more in with the behavior things. But yeah, so we can do we still do the consultation with you. So I ask all these questions in order for Jesse to know, and then see what he thinks.
All right. And then what is, in your opinion, and I'm sure you may have to verify with Jesse, but just off the cuff, is this, what is the training going to look like? Is it several sessions of him showing up to Oz Park and meeting the trainer there? Is it day camp? Is it board and train? To what level of training do you think he has to do?
So in person would be your best bet. And then for the socialization, because I'm going to send up I'm going to send you a follow-up email, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's going to have all the programs, all prices, the e-collar brand we recommend, the Muzzle brand we recommend, and there's going to be links to all these things, right?
Right.
Now for the program, we have the board and train, daycare and train, and in person. In person, you get pros are you learn everything. You're there. We don't touch the dog. We coach you through everything. Daycare and train, I wouldn't recommend because it's like you drop off your dog. We record everything, but then it's like you're wanting to focus on more behavior than obedience. So then, I mean, board and train might also work because you're leaving him here, and then we can do the dog stuff here and just seeing what's going on. I'm not sure if there's a possibility of like splitting it because I mean, through the board and train you get follow-ups, right? So we can do all the we do all the obedience, then we do the dog stuff. We're recording everything, and then when you come in, we show you this is what we've done. This is after you watch the videos because you see all the first introductory sessions with King. You watch all the videos. We transfer everything to you, and then you get a lot of follow-up. So the follow-up is very important for us so that we can get everything to you instead of just being like, he'll sit down place. There you go. You know?
Yeah. He did the day and train with sit mean sit. It was very much the same procedure. It might be like different training techniques, but he spent the day with them. When I came and picked him up at the end of the day, got a half hour or more where they showed me what he did, and guy got to practice all the things they were teaching him with me in that teaching environment. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So in person, would be your best bet, but then it's like when can you practice the dog social? You know what I mean? Like then
in person is harder to work around. Like I work a 9 to 5, so dropping him off somewhere is something that is more feasible for me than like making an appointment that we get to several times a week, because we have to do it after work. We got to both schedules synced. So that may be the way we go, and we'll figure out the schedules from there. But I was curious as to which you recommended based on what you know about King now.
What else? Any other questions?
No, I think that's pretty much it for now. So when would I likely hear back?
Most likely tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so I'll send the follow-up email tonight or tomorrow. I'll talk to Jesse tonight.
Okay.
But a lot of attacks, right? A lot.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I asked all the right questions for him and everything, so that he could get his opinion. He's neutered.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I think.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, so I'll look for the email. We can go from there. Do you know roughly Jesse's schedule, like how soon he could start taking on another dog and making it into the schedule?
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, people with different schedules. I'll follow up with him, or I'll follow up with the email you send me, and we'll move on from there then.
Correct.
All right.
Anything else last minute?
No, that's it from me. So it's very nice talking to you. I look forward to getting your email.
Of course. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.